And they're going to be on the whole time.
We're all set and ready when you are.
I got to show her something real quick, but you can go ahead and do your hello if you want.
Are you ready, Jeremy?
Looks and sounds great.
It's got a low bar for that. Thanks for coming out to everybody. This is a great turnout. So happy to have you here tonight. My name is Brandon Blau. I am Springfield's fire chief. As most of you know, we've been trying to get people to come out and come to our orientation sessions, do some open houses. We still have one more recruiting event this coming Saturday, and it is going to be from 10:30 till 12:30 at Salvation Army. That's over there by Martin Luther King and Clear Lake, the old Gold's Gym. So if you have an opportunity to do that, that would be great as well. You're going to get a lot of information tonight, though, on how to take the test, what the test is comprised of, and just some other information that you can use as you go along the process. Tonight's format is a little different, and if you have a question, please, I know that a lot of you are going to go, yeah, I'm not doing that. But if you have a question at any point in time, raise your hand. You can come right up here to the podium and ask it. That is what all these kind people standing and sitting behind me are here for, so that we can get your questions asked. We will be around afterwards. So if you have some questions and you want to just walk up and talk to us individually about that, you can do that as well. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Kim Homeyer is going to be our moderator tonight, and so I'm going to go ahead and let her start. And then once again, please raise your hand if you have any questions, and we're more than happy to answer those. There will be a couple of times where we'll just have somebody come up here and talk to give you some information about some stuff. But thanks for being here again, and I'm going to hand it off to Kim. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So, again, I'm Kim Homeyer. I'm in Human Resources. I do all the testing for the city. So I'm going to be your contact person along the way. I've got my email listed up there on the screen. In the information packets has our Human Resources email, so you can reach me either way. I always say, too, is make sure that you put my email into yours, just to make sure that it doesn't go into spam when I do send you things, because that's the way I'm going to communicate with you through most of the process is through email. All right, so qualifications to test for firefighter. You must be a U.S. citizen between the age of 20 and 34. There are some exemptions underneath our Illinois state statute. High school graduate, GED equivalent, ability to pass all phases of testing, no felonies or certain misdemeanors, no offensive and or inappropriate visible tattoos, and vision correctable to 20/40 with no monochromatic color blindness. So the first thing you need to do is complete your application profile. So if you've never applied with the city before, you'll go to our website, that first link that's listed there. It's going to have you set up a profile. It's going to have you set up like security questions, password. Then if you have a resume, you'll be able to upload it and it'll populate a lot of those areas for you. But I do stress that make sure that everything that's being populated is correct. The other thing is if we were to make a decision to hire you based off of just your application, how would it look? So make sure that you're using proper capitalization, all that stuff when you're completing it. So once you do set up that profile, it's with you forever. So if for some reason you want to apply for a different job, or if it doesn't work out this time, you want to apply for the next fire test, you simply log on, select the position you want. It'll ask you some security questions, and then it'll accept your application. Also, the second link that's on the screen, that's if you want to look at the firefighter testing page. It'll have the information packet we gave you tonight. It won't have that study guide on there, though. It'll have like the tattoo policy, just several different things out there. When you do submit your application, we will review it. Then you'll get an email from us letting you know that your application's complete, and there'll be a link in there for the study guide that I handed out tonight if you just want to look at it online. Lastly, what you'll need to do is email that human resources email and let us know what date you want to test, because we're offering 2 separate dates. And I'll hit that on the next slide as well.
I'm just going to add a little bit to that as well. So far, we've had a number of people that have signed up for the test, but a lot of them have not picked which testing date that they're going to go to. You have to pick a date, okay? And if you haven't actually gotten signed up on the website to take the test, you need to do that too. You can't do any walk-ins. I know that there's probably several people here who have not gone to the website yet and gotten that part taken care of. It is imperative for you to do that, and probably sooner rather than later. You have until January 1st at 11 p.m. But it'd be much better for everybody, including yourself, if you go ahead and get that out of the way. And as far as picking a date, that helps us too, because then we know how many we should expect on each date.
So January 5th will be the first session. That'll be at 6 o'clock in the evening. That's when the test actually starts, so you'll want to make sure that you get there early enough to get checked in and seated. And then the other one is January 7th at 9 a.m. They're both at the Crown Plaza. You will have to show your photo ID. We didn't ask for it tonight, just be in orientation. But now through the remaining steps of the process, you will have to have a photo ID to be welcomed in. The written test, it consists of cognitive and behavioral sections. Candidates have 2 hours and 45 minutes to complete it, and that clock doesn't stop, so there's not sections that are timed. So you just get a complete 2 hours and 45 minutes. You do have a minimum passing score of 70% to move on to the next phase. The cognitive component is multiple choice, designed to assess verbal comprehension, verbal expression, problem sensitivity, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and information ordering. Behavioral components are designed to assess personal characteristics such as motivation, team orientation, and I can never say that word, conscientiousness. So let's just talk about some of the cognitive dimensions. Things you can expect. Deductive reasoning. That's the process of reasoning from one or more statements to reach a logically certain conclusion. Deductive is certain. Inductive reasoning. Reasoning in which the premises seek to supply strong evidence for, not absolute proof of, the truth and conclusion. Inductive is probable. Problem sensitivity. The ability to tell when something is wrong or is likely to go wrong. Verbal comprehension, a person's capacity to understand the language utilized by other people. Verbal expression, the activity of communicating and conveying information. Information ordering, the ability to arrange things or actions in a certain order or pattern according to a specific rule or set of rules, such as patterns of numbers, letters, words, pictures, and mathematical operation. The behavioral section, so what we're looking for in a firefighter is strong people skills, strong communication skills, both verbal and written, a sense of fairness in dealing with people and issues, a high degree of honesty, a willingness to seek input from others and build a consensus, open-minded, flexible, a well-controlled ego, self-confident, a good listener, able to be direct when needed without being abusive or offensive, a sincere interest in people and their well-being. Again, you can jump in anytime you want to. All right, so the written exam study material. So most of you have received that. We're making some more copies for those that haven't. This is like 51 pages of information for you to go through. So definitely take advantage of it. It's going to give you sample questions of what to expect on the test. I always say the sample questions might be an easier set of questions than what's on the test, but again, it's going to give you an idea of what to expect. With the behavioral portion of it, there's nothing you can do to really prepare for that part. You just need to answer it honestly.
And there's lots of things online that have practice test questions. One of the things that we find in all of the testing is that we know that everybody in this room has the ability to pass this test. What usually the hiccups that most people encounter have to do more with test anxiety, and the best way to combat any kind of test anxiety is practice. So I would tell each and every one of you to find those questions, go over them. And the more comfortable you get, the less anxiety that you're going to have when that test day comes. So, and that's not just for the written portion. That's also when it comes down to the interview portion, where you know that there's going to be certain questions or certain questions along certain lines. And you can look up, you should be looking up all sorts of tricks of the trade on how to do well on a fire department test. And it may sound silly, but take those questions, come up with what you want to say, and practice in the mirror. That is the only way that you're really going to figure out, I say too many ums. And when I say I say too many ums, I say too many ums. And it's something that I've had to work on myself. So make sure that you do that. You get to a certain level where you're comfortable doing that. And that will really give you a lot of help when it comes down to the day. Also, don't be afraid to take a second. When it comes down to the interview portion, it's better to take a second, formulate your thoughts. Okay, I think I ought to say these 3 things in this answer, and give yourself the opportunity to say all 3 of those things than just start your mouth a-running, because that usually ends up in some type of a disastrous answer. We've all seen it, so go ahead.
So with the oral assessment, it's a panel interview, and it's designed to assess the most critical job-related skills and abilities. Each candidate will be asked the same series of questions, ranging from hypothetical scenarios to specific questions about how you tend to deal with issues. Moving 2 different screens here, sorry. The assessments will be conducted by a diversified panel of individuals that are from the Springfield Fire Department, the community, and city management. So you're going to have at least 4 people in front of you, if not 5. And so you're going to be sitting across the room from these individuals. They're going to ask you a series of questions, and each question has a time limit. Everybody gets the same questions. The candidate will read along, so they'll have a book in front of them. So the first question, they'll read along as one of the assessors will read it out loud to them. Once you have completed your response, let the panel know so that you can move on to the next question. Because there's always that awkward silence. You're already nervous because it's you against 4 or 5 people. So instead of just sitting there waiting for them, let them know, because they might be sitting there waiting for you to see if you've got additional information. The other thing is keep in mind that once you respond to a question and move on to the next one, and then all of a sudden you think of, oh my gosh, I got something I want to add to that prior one, you can't. So once that question's done and you move on, you cannot go back. But here's the thing, you're going to be asked probably, 7 questions, 6, 7 questions. So maybe that first one, that was rough. Just know that you've got those additional questions to make up for. So don't get frustrated with yourself and think that you're not going to still do well, all right? The other thing is the assessors, they're going to be across from you. They're going to be writing stuff down. They're taking notes. They're looking at benchmarks, things that you're saying, certain triggers that they want to hear. So they may not be keeping eye contact on you at all times. Don't think that that's a bad thing. It's just they have to take their notes.
I was going to say, it may seem a little intimidating. You're sitting in front of 4 or 5 strangers that are determining whether or not you're going to get the job that maybe you've been working for a long time. Just keep in mind, all the people in that room want you to be successful. So whenever you think that, oh, I shouldn't have said that or whatever, they're not looking for ways. They're not saying, well, I'm going to give them a point for saying this, but I'm taking one off for that other stupid statement, because that's not the way that it works. Just keep going. What we really want to do is want to hear everything you have to say about that question. And one of the biggest problems that we have with the interview portion is that we know that the person knows the right answer. We know it's in there somewhere, and we can't drag it out of you. So don't be afraid to collect your thoughts for a second and then continue. We want to hear what you have to say. If you don't say it, we can't give you points for it. And the thing that we want to do is give everybody points while they're in there. That's the whole thing about the oral assessment part. So just don't get too nervous when you're in there. Those people want to help you. That just give them a reason to give you the points.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I've sat on both sides of the interview table, and I can say if you can try to personalize your question, so it's going to be just a canned question that you're going to answer, and you need to answer it fully. But if you have a life experience that you can talk about that goes along with that question, to me, it's going to add points because you're going to personalize it. They're going to remember you, and then you're going to hit more of the points that you wouldn't if you just make it real generic.
And there's no right or wrong. So with a one-part question, it's typically going to be 2 minutes. A two-part might be 3 minutes. Some people think that if they give a really quick response, it shows that they're quick on their feet. And other people think if I use the whole entire time, they have to stop me. It just shows that I have a lot to say. Again, there's no right or wrong. It's, again, developing that response and making sure that what you're answering deals with that question. Because sometimes we'll have that with people that they end up giving a good response, but it had nothing to do with the question that they were asked. With the two-part question, you've got that question in front of you, so make sure you're paying attention and you're answering both parts of it. Even if you got to put your finger on that second one just to remind yourself, do it. But again, make sure that you're answering all of the question. Go ahead.
And to pick up on what Julie was talking about, when you personalize your answer as well, it shows that you were listening to the question, that you thought about it for a second, and you're able to engage your brain to take the question and use a response from your actual experience, which is really good. When you're answering these questions, if you're offering up, well, I think or I would, is not as strong an answer as I have, or in the past I've done this. So anytime that you can show an experience and that you can take a question and make it your own, as Captain Plunk was saying, that really helps people understand who you are better rather than I think that I would do this. If you have the ability to interject personal experience, you should always do it.
And one other thing to add to it, if you don't have a personal experience that goes with it, give them a response of, what, I haven't experienced that, but this is what I would do if I experienced it. Because again, depending on your life and what you've dealt with, you may or may not. But again, tell them what you would do instead of just saying, I don't have anything. I've never done that before. So what I want to do right now is I want to ask a couple questions. So I don't know if I could have maybe someone volunteer. Let me ask them a question, and I want you to respond. David, you want to? All right. David, will you come up here to the podium so that way we can have you recorded with your response?
May we also have the other panelists please introduce themselves when they answer the questions?
Oh, okay.
I should have introduced them. I'm rude.
It humanizes everyone.
It does. We have Captain Todd Taylor. He's from our Fire Safety Division. Captain Julie Plunk, Operations, and Firefighter Mike Joyner, Operations.
All right, step on up there, David. Being a firefighter requires you to be involved with the community. If you were a Springfield firefighter, describe what your role in the community would look like, and you have 2 minutes to respond.
Firefighters are a
Forgive me, sir. I'm terribly sorry. The mic was muted. Everyone's going to be able to hear you much better now. Thank you.
My name is David Alexander, and I think that's correct that firefighters are a big part of the community. I believe they are a pillar of the community. I've always looked up to firefighters, especially what you see in the movies. They run into the fires and they save the day all the time. But in real life, firefighters, they do a lot, not just running into fires, but helping people with medical issues. And in real life, they come in on people's worst days and are able to supply a glimmer of hope or positivity to their day and help them with the distress that they're going through. That's something that I strive to do every day. So being a part of the fire department would be, a dream come true for me and a way for me to continue giving back to the community.
Is that you're done with your response? All right. So that was 1 minute 14 seconds. Something I noticed with you that I have in me is an ummer.
Yeah.
You a lot.
I do.
And it was brought to my attention. I've been really working on it, but it's something you don't even realize until somebody says. So definitely that's, again, think of that when you're going to do your response.
I joined Ummers Anonymous. And that
I
helped
know,
a lot.
I know. It's
Meetings
a
on
struggle.
Tuesdays.
It's a struggle. But again, you described a lot about the fire department and that, but that second part of it was describe what your role would look like in the community. So think about that and think about maybe it's helping others in the community and being present and then seeing a positive, move. So you had a lot of good information, but think about the whole entire part of the question.
And the purpose of this, and thank you, David, for being willing to come up here, because doing that takes a lot of guts, is part of this drill, and we're going to find out on the next question too. So if you're thinking about going, thinking the second one was going to be easier, please still come up, but it's not going to be easier. These are going to be tough questions, okay? They're not designed to be easy. What we do isn't easy, and you have to have communication skills in order to do it. And it's not just what we're doing here tonight. It's on every call that you go on. You're going to have to walk into somebody's home, generally speaking, and find out what is going on. Why did this person call 911? And you have to have the ability to talk to people and listen and get everything that you need out of that person so that you can solve whatever problem that they're having. You lean forward like you're going to say something. No? Okay. But they are going to be tough questions. So just, David, that was a very good answer. And you would have got points. I don't know how many points because I don't have the thing in front of me. But you would have got points. But just know that these are going to be difficult questions, and that's why I said this is a good thing to come to, so that you know that, so that you know that when you go online and you find some of these other questions, some sample questions, that you can practice them. Thanks,
Thank you very
David.
much. All right, so what about our next volunteer? And again, we're not trying to, make you feel uncomfortable, but we are trying a little bit to, just because we want you to understand what types of questions you might be asked. It's better to give us an odd look than to give the assessors when it's asked of you. All right, step on up. I guess he wants your name. The voice in
What's that?
The voice in the ceiling wants your name.
Oh, gotcha. Andrew Crum.
All right, Andrew. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you knew failed to accept another person's diversity? If so, how did you respond? And if not, how would you respond? You have 2 minutes.
Unfortunately, I have been in that kind of scenario just through the work that I do now as a flight medic for Air Evac. there was a situation where one crew member wasn't treating the other crew member appropriately. And in that line of work, like this line of work, that's a very dangerous thing to have, because there's 3 of us in that aircraft, and it takes 3 of us to land that aircraft, take care of the patient, get the aircraft back safely. And whenever those 2 crew members aren't getting along together, it creates a rift in the teamwork that kind of the crew needs as a whole. So whether it was a diversity thing, a difference of opinion thing, whatever it was, it takes all 3 of us to come together as a group and figure out the situation and overcome it. And then I have kind of intermediated that conversation just through my job, just saying, hey, that wasn't right. It's like we need to discuss what was wrong and figure out a plan to kind of come back together and figure out what we got to do. And I think I'm done.
All right, that was 1 minute, 18 seconds.
2 minutes is a long time.
It
Yeah.
is, but, you know,
It feels like forever.
it does feel like forever, but yeah, but,
Another tough question, right? And that's.
but I think it helps that you've got life experiences, you know, because again, we have people that could be from 20 to 34, some that haven't had a lot of jobs, haven't had a lot of interaction with people, depending where they live or what may. So again, it definitely helps that you have life experiences, and I can tell with your response. But it's you're always going to get asked a diversity question. I'm just going to tell you that now. All right, so you need to really think about what diversity means to you. It's not just a color, okay? So broaden your thoughts about it. Google, just like the chief said, go out and Google firefighter oral assessment questions. It's going to give you a lot of examples out there. I don't know if you've tested with other agencies, but if you have, you're probably seeing similar questions. We don't use the same questions all the time. Obviously, we won't use these for the next round. But again, I think that was a good response.
So just so you know, that, just like Kim said, you should always expect at any type of an interview for a fire department or a police department, questions about diversity in the workplace, okay? That is something that there's a big focus on. Obviously, it's something that we're trying to tackle with the fire department right now. Another thing that they're gonna probably ask you, if I was taking notes, if I had a pen in my pocket right now, if I was sitting out there, I'd think about this, is stress, because ours is a very stressful job. Okay, so a question somewhere along the lines of how do you manage stress? How stressful is your current job? How stressful do you expect the fire department to be? How do you handle stress? There's good ways of handling stress and there's bad ways of handling stress. So I would have a prepared few lines about a stress question, teamwork, communication, all of those types of things, conflict. Those are all premises on which a lot of questions on any fire department oral interview is going to ask you to tackle. So having some baseline, some canned responses. That's why I said practice, practice, practice. I know I'm going to say these 3 things, and then everything else is going to be, I'm going to try and come up with something else to tie a bow on it, right? So, but just make sure that you practice, those type of situations so that you're ready to go when we do ask you.
Do you want to add something too?
Yeah. Like they said, any interview, right, that you go to today is going to have diversity as a question. So don't be scared to define it, and say those words, right? So it's different races, different religions, different sexual orientations, because those are people in the community and ourselves that you're going to be working with and working for and helping. So we need to make sure that you're using those words and that show that you have an understanding of what diversity is and what it means. So don't be scared to use those words in the interview.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
So I've got one last one. I don't think this one's very hard, so Who wants to take it? Please? All right, come on up. This question I would hope you would know something about.
How you doing? My name is Zane Womack.
All right. Let me reset my phone here. What do you know about the Springfield Fire Department? You have 2 minutes.
Well, you guys are very similar to Springfield Police Department in a lot of ways. Every shift, you guys go out there and you guys risk your life every day to protect and serve the community. I feel like, for the most part, in a latent sense, I'm pretty acclimated to that. My father served as Sangamon County police officer for the past 17 years, so, you know, there's always the, you know, like, are you ever going to come home, you know, versus, you know, like, saving people, like, risking your life every single day. Like, that's just the job every single day. High intensity, stressful, and, yeah, you guys pretty much just go out and you guys serve and protect the community.
All right, that was 1 minute and 3 seconds. And this one is kind of opening people's eyes to how many engine houses do we have, how many rigs, how many members do they have on the department. And so you're absolutely correct. They're here to serve the community and risk their lives. But what I strongly suggest is that you take some time and you go to the city's website, to the fire department's page, and read it all and educate yourself about not only the fire department but the city of Springfield. How many residents do we have in the city of Springfield? I don't know if you list how many calls that you make, if that's out on the website or what may.
I don't know if it is, but if you said somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000, you'd be close enough to probably get some points.
And then the other thing I strongly suggest is that you, if you don't know any firefighters for the city, you can always contact our office and we will try to put you in contact with somebody so that you can learn more about their job and just in general, especially when you have ones that have been on recently within the last 5 years, because they've gone through a similar testing process. And so you can learn from them, learn what to do, maybe what not to do. So again, that's my feedback.
And this is a good question to show that some of them are going to be really broad. You went straight for what the people themselves do and experience. That's a fine direction. It's a good direction. Other people, like Kim said, it's easier for them to look up some stuff and say, well, we have 12 engines and 3 trucks and 2 battalion cars. We go on 21,747 calls last year. That's easier for them. There's no right or wrong to that, but the more you know about our actual department, what kind of calls we go on, how many fires do we have a year, those aren't essential. As far as like, we're not going to not give somebody points because we're going to give you a follow-up question. You know, the old thing where, okay, how many fires were there in Springfield to the first person and on what days of the week did we have the most fires? And then say, okay, now your question is give me the addresses. We're not going to do that. We're not going to follow up and make things harder on you than they have to be. But the more stuff that you can interject with facts that you know about our fire department is definitely going to get our attention that there's been prep. This is pre-prep. So the fact that you didn't put those in there, that's fine. But that's why we're here, is because now you know that's a broad question. It's not like we didn't ask you how many fire engines are in the city of Springfield and expect you to give an answer. We just gave you the open-ended question and let you talk about it. So, but it is good to know some of the things that we do. You know, we do hazmat, we have a boat, we have a dive team, we run drones, we do a lot of things other than running into burning buildings. Over 60% of our calls are actually EMT, EMS, medical calls that we go on every day. So all those things are good for you to know and to be able to to interject into your answer when you get if you get asked a question like that. Okay.
And even if you're not asked a question specifically like that, you might be able to take what you learned about the department and the city and apply it to a question that you're asked. So it just goes to show them that, oh, they've done their research, they've done their math, they know. So just, again, some pointers in that. But
Thank you for your
thank
courage.
you very much. Appreciate
Thanks for
you
coming up
stepping
and help.
All right. So I won't put anybody else up in the hot seat now. We'll move on. Does anybody have any questions about this process? Because the oral assessment is the biggest component. So when we go to weight your written and your written's going to be 40% and your oral's going to be 60%. So that's why we're hitting kind of hard on this part, because, you know, maybe you've only interviewed a few times in your life, and when you did, it was only with one person. It wasn't with a panel of people. So when the chief said, get in front of the mirror, practice, what I always say is get some family members, especially ones that are going to let you know if you did a good job or if you didn't. That's going to make you feel more comfortable when you walk into that room.
Find your meanest friend and have them do it with you so that they can tell you, boy, that answer really stunk. You got to work on that one. So, no, but it is good to have good feedback. Don't go to somebody who's just going to say, oh, that's great, honey. Go to somebody who's going to give you real feedback. And if you have any questions about a lot of this stuff too, like Kim said, you can contact her. If you go to the city's website and go to the fire department section, there's a box right on there that says "Ask the Chief." That goes directly into my email account. And if I can't answer that question for you, because we have a lot of people who are, I have not been on a fire truck running calls in several years, but we have a lot of people who do, that are more than happy to answer those questions for you as far as how that works from our standpoint. One thing I think would be helpful real quick is if Mike, why don't you tell everybody, what does your day look like from the time that you come in the morning until the time that you go home?
So the time I get in there about 6:15, and then I wait for my relief, or the person I'm relieving, to come down. They give me a report of what calls they ran, what they did, pertinent information, not totally detailed, so I can, if they use stuff, I can make sure I double check it. Then I put my things on the rig, make sure I'm ready to go. Then I go over the entire rig, all our medical equipment, do our tests, put our check-its in. Then, of course, I go and clean, because that's my job. But then we were looking at the schedule. Do we have training that day? What time is training? What training do I have to get done for the quarter? Whether it be medical training, JPRs, whatever. Currently, we have a rookie now, so I'll be working a lot with him, kind of day-to-day stuff, reviewing things that they went over in the academy. So that generally I try to go into each day with one big project, something that I go into for the house or the rig that I try to improve. Either cleaning tools, marking equipment, cleaning something detailed in the house or on the rig. Takes me to lunch. Then usually after lunch, a little more downtime. Maybe training is in the afternoon. Of course, we're still running calls throughout the day. I'm in Engine 1, so we're quite busy down there. Then work out at some point in the afternoon, then dinner, and then it's kind of after dinner is kind of your downtime. But again, you're trying to get all these things accomplished while also running calls. And that minimum call is a half hour, 45 minutes. If it's a fire, maybe 3 hours. So, it's every single day is different. And that's what I love about the job is I'm not going sitting behind a desk, pumping in numbers, what it is, making widgets. Every single day I don't know what it is. But in the morning, I know I got my routine, check my stuff, I'm prepared, the rig is prepared, and then we just have a blast from there. End of the question.
And then Todd Taylor, he works in our fire safety division, which it's just as exciting, just with more desk work.
Very, very.
Nope.
Todd, you want to give them a little rundown of what you do?
So fire safety division, we are in charge of all building code enforcement that's fire related, so fire safety related situations. So all commercial buildings and all multifamily domiciles, so apartment buildings, hotels, that sort of thing. So we go through most of them. We do an annual inspection. We look for fire code stuff, smoke detectors, fire alarms, sprinkler systems, egress issues, all that. And we make sure that those businesses keep and maintain their facilities up to fire code. That's the everyday kind of bread and butter of what our office does. There's 7 of us up there. We're just down the hall. And then the other side is we do all the fire investigations for the fire department as well. So when the guys that are on the rigs and the gals that are on the rigs go out, they fight a fire. You know, if they determine that maybe this looks like a suspicious fire, or they can't figure out what started it, or it meets certain criteria, they call the fire safety division. We go out in pairs and we investigate the cause and the origin of the fire. So we try to determine where it started, and then once we figure that out, we try to figure out how it started. And that can be a pretty lengthy process. And there are a few of us now in our office that are also dual sworn with the police department. So we have full arrest powers to go after the criminal side of the arson. So it's really cool. It's really interesting. These guys have all the fun, right? They get to go play and then go home. And then I get to go slop through the mess that they created and try to figure out what the heck happened, right? But the science behind it's kind of neat. Typically, that office is senior guys on the department. You have to be a captain to get up there. Yeah, and there is, like the chief said, there's a ton of paperwork, like a ton. That's the downside of the job, but the rest of it I really enjoy.
You're losing them, Todd. You're losing them with the
Am I?
paperwork.
Yeah, those guys work a 24-hour shift every third day.
Yeah.
I work a 40-hour work week, Monday through Friday. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Sure. Wanna
Okay, very
move
good.
on?
You'll also get to talk in a minute too, because there's another thing that you do for us as well. So again, now we've got our written done, we've got our oral done. Now we're going to ask people, do you want to apply for preference points? There's a couple different things that you could possibly achieve. First one is, and I'll jump back to that slide. The first one is military. Do we have anybody that's military or prior military in the room? Okay, very good. Thank you for your service. What you must have is at least a minimum of 1 year of federal active duty service with an honorable discharge. So we do count your basic training in your tech school. From there, if you're National Guard, it's got to be a deployment to be able to get that 1 year of active duty service. Maybe you're on 90-day deployments at a time. We would just need all of your DD-214s to add up to that 1 year. That would give you 5 preference points added to your final score. Then we also have residency. So if you have lived in the city of Springfield corporate limits 9 months from the date of the written exam back, and you can provide us documentation for every single month, that it could be a utility bill, your cell phone bill, what may, but it's just got to have your name, your address, and the date on it. You could get 5 preference points for that as well. The easiest way to do it is if you have service with CWLP, you can reach out to them. They'll give you a letter. It'll state your name, the residence, and when you started your service, and if you're still currently there. But when in doubt, you can always ask us questions of, hey, can I use this? Can I use that? Another good one is your property tax bill. Instead of don't bring me all your 9 months of bank statements. I don't need to know your financials. I just need that front page of it. You'll also have to sign an affidavit certifying that you are telling us the truth and that you have been at that residence for the past 9 months. The other thing is with Springfield, we have a lot of holes within the city. So like Southern View, Leland Grove, Grandview, those are not parts of the corporate limits. Those are like townships. The other one that you can apply for is Fire Explorer points. So if you've been a Fire Explorer with the city of Springfield over 2 years and in good standing, you can achieve the 2 points. Throughout the state, there's only like 3 different areas that are actually certified post, and Springfield's one of them. So, for example, say you were Explorer in Sherman, that unfortunately wouldn't qualify you for it. So it's got to be by a certified host.
And if you think that you're eligible to receive these points, don't blow them off, seriously, because 2 or 5 points might make a difference between you and 15 or 20 people. This test is very competitive, and every point that you can get could be the difference between whether you get asked to join the fire department or whether you don't. So if you have the ability to gain any of these points, don't say, well, I don't think, I'm not going to turn my stuff in, or I don't think I'm going to be able to get it in time. Do everything you can to get these points, because there will be some people who literally get hired because they turned their points in, and the people 2 below them didn't. The people who may not get hired may have had a better oral and a better written score than they had, but they didn't get these extra points. So make sure that if you get them, that you go ahead and turn those in so you get credit for it.
But on the other side of that, I don't want to deter you and say if you don't have preference points, you're not going to get hired. You're just going to have to work hard and prepare for the written and the oral assessment and do well. We've hired several people that did not have any preference points. But again, keep that in mind, that you're going to have to work hard, because you might have somebody that can, gain that 10 points, 12 points.
It's not something that you can't, if you don't have any of these points, that you have like no shot. That's not what I'm trying to say, and please don't take that as discouragement if you don't have any of these points. I'm just saying if you do have them, they are very helpful.
So you'll have 10 days to claim those points, to turn your documents into us. And again, I'll let you know when that time comes later in the testing process. With our state statute, we have to provide several different lists. So your first list is going to be the preliminary. It's going to be just your written exam score. So it'll just be the top score on down, and I will provide that to all the candidates. The next one will be your written and oral exam. And then your final list will be the written, oral, and the preference points. Top scores, number 1 on down. Like I said earlier, the written is weighted at 40%, the oral is weighted at 60%. Once that's done, then those preference points will be added to it for the final score.
If you don't score exactly where you want to on the written, which is obviously the first part though, just realize that the oral part, you can make up a ton of ground. If you score, in the 70s on your written, and you think, well, I don't have a shot at this, please do not drop out of the process, because there is a ton of people who do well on the written. On the oral, they do not as well, and a lot of people who do not as well on the written, and then they knock it out of the park in the oral interview. So please stay with the process, because you just don't know how the scoring is ever going to go against the people that you're competing against. There's almost nobody does great on both parts, okay? So just keep that in mind. We have people who do well on both parts and some people who do pretty well on both parts, but there's plenty of people who their written score was not reflective of where they wanted to be, and then they go in and they do really well on the oral assessment and they make up all that ground.
We have a Civil Service Commission, and they're the ones that oversee all of our testing processes. It's a 7-member panel. We have a chairman, a vice chairman, and 5 commissioners. They're all appointed by the mayor. They review, approve, and/or deny background investigations, psychological evaluations, medical exams, and they also certify our eligibility lists. When we get to the point of bringing a background to the commission, and actually at the oral assessment portion, you're given a candidate ID number. So you would have FE001, 002, 003. And the reason we do that is because the assessors don't need to know what your name is to be able to evaluate you. Because unfortunately, sometimes a name can help you and a name can hurt you. So that ID will carry with you through the remainder of the process. So when you go in front of the commission, your background, they're going to only know you as your candidate ID number. They're not going to know your race, your gender, your age, none of that information, because again, the commission doesn't need to know that to determine if you're a good person and if your background's approved or denied. Same thing with the psychological, same thing with the medical. So the third part of it is the candidate physical ability test. We call it the CPAT test. That's a nationally recognized test, and that list that you're looking up on the screen are all the different events. So I'm going to let Mike hit on this portion of it.
Evening. So I guess the reason I got asked to talk about this because I've been a proctor for the CPAT for 5 years now, roughly. It's a pretty technical event. It's very hard. About 80% of people that take it fail it in general, and then about, the people that fail it, about 90% of those people that fail it on the stair climb. So throughout the entire event, you will have a 50-pound weight vest on you, and then during the stair climb, they will add another 25 pounds, so 75 total pounds on the stair climb, and you'll have 3 minutes, and 20 seconds on there. First 20 seconds is a warm-up, then it's 3 minutes at 60 steps per second. Okay? You cannot grab the handlebars. You can tap it with your hand. My suggestion would be to go out to Walmart if you don't feel like you're ready for it. Find a Stairmaster, find some just stairs, and go up them. The way I trained for it, I was at the gym, Stairmaster, set it for 60 steps a second, and then grabbed dumbbells and put them on my shoulders and walked for 5 minutes, okay? So that's how I trained for that. And then after the Stairmaster, you're gonna be smoked. And we can tell in about 1 minute if somebody's gonna fail. You get up there, start getting a little wobbly, start getting a little tappy with the hands. With that vest, my suggestion is take those thumbs and tuck them into that vest and just rest. Rest your shoulders. Do not step with just your toes. If you have big feet, you're going to run into a problem because some of those Stairmasters do have short steps on them or small steps, so you're going to have to kind of step outward. So use your big muscles, not your calves. So after that, you're going to walk it's 65 feet. You have to walk in between each event. The hose drag, this is the only event you can run on. So you will grab the hose, you run around a corner, 2 big barrels, then you'll get into a square. So the technical part is you cannot get out of that square when you start pulling that hose. You'll pull it to where it's marked, get up, walk 65 feet, do the equipment carry. You'll take each piece of equipment off the shelf, set it on the ground next to you, walk, I can't remember the exact distance, walk around the barrel, set them down, don't slam them, don't drop them, set them down, pick them up, put them up one by one, 65 feet. Then the ladder raise and extension. This is another very technical one because you'll have a square about this big. And if you step out of it, you're disqualified. So you stay in there and it's hand over hand. And so once you slam it up there, you have to bring it back down hand over hand. You cannot let the rope slide in your hand. You cannot let the ladder collapse. Then 65 feet walking, forcible entry. So there's a forcible entry prop, and you have your sledgehammer, and then it's pulled out, and you got to hit it until it buzzes or dings. So the point of that, especially this goes into part of the job, is when I'm trying to make forcible entry into something, I'm not hitting the surface of it, right? I want to hit 1 inch on the inside of it because that's where I want it to go, right? So it takes about 3 to 5 swings, about 3 to 5 swings. Once it buzzes, you set the sledgehammer down, move on to search. Search is, it's a little bit of confined space, completely dark, blackened out, some ropes, some things in there to kind of throw you off a little bit. Just buzz right through that, 65 feet. Now the rescue, that one did smoke me. That one was pretty bad. I had a plan at first, but then I had to switch to plan B. A 185-pound dummy that you have to pick up by the handles that are on it. You can walk with it, drag it, whatever you need to do. Carry it around a barrel. You cannot reach out and grab that barrel. Can't touch that barrel. The dummy can touch that barrel, but you cannot. You can't grab onto it for support, anything like that. Once you bring the dummy the feet all the way past the line, drop the dummy, and then the ceiling breach and pull is the last event. It's, I believe, 3 pushes and then 3 pulls, 5 rounds. So, and it's all weighted. So there's weights on top of it. They have a huge prop up there. And so 3 up, 3 down, 5 rounds of that, and then you're done. You're smoked. Hopefully, you are out of gas, you got no more to give, and you passed. But again, it's a very technical thing. So what I did was I watched the YouTube videos on it from everybody doing it, and then I ran through it mentally in my head about 100,000 times because I wanted to make sure that I got in there and I didn't mess around, and that was not going to disqualify me. I trained for it, and then I went in there and I did not mess around. So when you sign up for it, you will have an orientation, a lot like this, and you will have the entire props, all that set up that you can just go and mess around on, test them out. So run through some paperwork, test them out, see what the stair climb's about. Then you'll have 3 chances to take it. You can choose on any of those. You can say practice or test me out. So what I would do and what I did was every single one say test out. So my first one, let's say test out, and I fail it, I'm still good because I have 2 more times. Second time, test me out. Never do a practice. Test me out. If I fail that, I still have 1 more, but in that last time, I got to nail it. Otherwise, you got to sign up for another one. It's another $150. So test that on that first one, then you don't even have to go back anymore and you never have to worry about it. Or you can do a one-time test out, $150. You're going to show up and take it if you feel like you can just smoke it. The other part of it is they have a ladder set up in there. It's indicator like in their industrial park area. You climb up a ladder, you look what's up, they have placed up there, you come down and you tell the proctor what's there, and you pass. Pretty easy. Kind of judge if you're afraid of heights, shaky, all that. But that is, in a nutshell, what the CPAT is. But again, do your own research, go through it mentally. There's a lot more technical things about it that you can get dinged on that can immediately we're going to stop you, especially on the stair climb. Like I said, about a minute in, we can tell, all right, now we need to start getting behind somebody because they might start falling. If they grab that rail, you're done. Okay?
It's an 8-week session, correct? If they sign up and they go on Tuesdays?
That I don't remember.
It is. I'm sorry, I kind of set you up on that one. It is an 8-week session, and so they run it on Tuesdays, and it's typically just in the morning. They allow you to miss, I believe, 1 you can get excused from. But that's the way to go because you get multiple times for that $150 versus going one time. And like he said, if you fail, you'll have to pay another $150 to go and test out again. So there's 3 different places here in Illinois that offer it that I know of. And so the closest one to us is in Decatur, and that's the Central Illinois Fire Chiefs. They oversee that one. There's another one in Glenview, Illinois, and then Indian Head Park, Illinois, so that's up north from us. We do offer waivers if you meet the requirements, financial requirements of the waiver, then we would cover the cost of that test. You'd have to provide us with documentation, and that's something that you can reach out to me when we get a little bit farther along in the process to see if you qualify, if you're interested in that.
One of the things too about the CPAT is it's not necessarily built so that only this size person can do it. We have a female that she's been on about 2 years now. I'm not 100% sure Amanda's 5 foot. She 5'1", 5'1", and it can be done. I mean, it's not all about just brute strength. There's a lot of cardio in it, and a lot of it is technique. So even if you're not a decathlete currently, if you sign up for that, they will teach you the technique. You're going to need to get in the gym, though. I mean, you're going to have to work on on stair climbers and making sure that you have decent cardio to do this. But don't get discouraged from thinking that, well, I got to be a 6 foot, 210-pound linebacker to be able to pass this, because that's not the case. They'll show you the techniques, and they can get you through it if you go over to Decatur and take that class.
The other thing is come in proper clothing. When I used to go over to Decatur when we did the CPAT testing, just taking care of checking people in and out and everything. And I had a guy show up and he had work boots on. And so he's already added a couple pounds onto his body. And on top of it, he had form-fitting blue jeans on as well. So he went in and it kicked his rear end right there at the Stairmaster. And so I talked to him about it afterwards. And so the next time he showed up, he had tennis shoes on and much proper clothing at that time, and ended up succeeding. I'm not saying it was the boots that got him and the jeans, but it didn't help him.
He looked good, but
Yeah, but it
struggled a
didn't
little
help him.
bit.
So, okay, so the next thing is the background investigation, and I'm just going to let Todd take that slide if you don't mind.
Sure. So the background stuff, it is extremely thorough. They will give you a packet, and when I say they want your life story, that's an understatement. They literally want everything that you have, every place you've ever lived, every job, every ticket, accident, arrest, you name it. If it's in your background, you have to document it. If you don't document it, I can assure you that the guys in my office and myself, we're going to find it. We look at social media. We talk to your friends. We talk to your neighbors. We talk to exes. You'll have to list probably 10 to 15 different references that fit certain little boxes. We're going to talk to every single one of them, and then we're going to go look for more that you don't have listed. It's a really thorough process, and a lot of people get tripped up because they forget, right? Oh, I got a ticket 2 years ago. I forgot to write it down. It's your responsibility to go find it, okay? Go to the areas that you've lived. Go to your county. Go to the county clerk's office. You can get all of that stuff. So make sure that your background is clear. It's clean. If you're not sure if it's clear or clean, put it in your background packet. Because like I said, we're going to find it. And that's what catches people and disqualifies them because they fail to list it. If you forgot, yeah, sorry. If it's a serious enough thing, that's grounds enough just to boot you right there. Our office doesn't have the ability to boot you. The Civil Service Commission that Kim talked about earlier, they carry the hammer, right? But we document everything. We don't necessarily put opinions in there. We just put all the facts that we discover. Civil Service Commission gets them. They read it all, and they vote yes or no. And I've seen them vote no for a lot that I thought maybe they had a few little things in their background, but they failed to give us the information. That was enough for the Civil Service Commission to bounce them. So it's really important that you're very thorough. It's a lot of information. So if you don't have a lot of that information currently, start digging it up, because some of it can be really difficult to find, especially if you moved a lot, you're in the military, whatever. Start getting all those residences and all that information together. Transcripts from schools, get all that. Okay.
What about expungements? If you've had something and it's been expunged, should be disclosed as well, right?
They don't have to for fire, only for police.
Only for police?
Yeah.
Okay.
But a couple other things to hit on. So make sure that you've got your certified birth certificate. We just need a copy of it. We don't need the original. Also, the high school diploma. If you don't know where your diploma is, we need your sealed transcripts from the school. Also, if you've gone to college, we need the diploma or the transcripts from that as well. Something that gets people is they order the transcripts and then they open them up because they're just curious because they forgot the grades that they got in school. Well, then they're not official anymore. So then you got to go and order them again. And depending on the timing, if it's in the summertime that we're running the background, that's going to be an issue because a lot of schools are closed. So just keep that in mind. If you are curious, order 2 copies and just keep one of them sealed. Again, that will come with the questionnaire when you return it to us. They do fingerprints. They do run you through the state police and everything on that. Now, there's the section there that talks about credit. And sometimes, people's credit, it's an issue, right? Depending on different situations in life. You cannot be removed solely on your credit, all right? But if you had a DUI last year and you got bad credit, well, that's going to get you removed. So I just always like to tell people that, you definitely got to list the information about your credit, but it can't just solely remove you just because of that. Military, even though you're going to give me your DD-214s to apply for those preference points, you're going to give a copy of that DD-214 with your packet as well, because you can't expect me to go and dig through a file because of the fact that we just have so many tests going on and everything. So just make sure that you've got multiple copies of that to turn in, because they will send off for your military records. The other thing I got to stress is if you had a situation on a job where you have a difference of opinion than your boss at the time, and maybe I always use the example that you had asked for some time off to go on vacation with the family, and the boss initially says yes, and then turns around and they scheduled you. Well, you didn't show because you're on vacation. So the boss is saying they terminated you, and you're saying, well, wait a minute here. No, I resigned because of the fact that they didn't let me have that time off that I had already asked for. So what I'm getting at is if there's anything you need to explain, there's multiple sheets in that questionnaire, tell them all about it, because you want them to hear your side of the story before they go and see that person. Because if you didn't tell them, they're going to come back to you and say, so tell me what happened there at McDonald's. You got terminated, and it just doesn't, it doesn't benefit you to have to explain something that you didn't list. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't remember or I forgot is not something you want to put on one of the questions on that background. Figure it out. Be prepared. Have it written down, because we're going to ask you about every single thing in that packet, and then we're going to go through and vet it all after we ask you about it. Most of the time we'll know the answers to them before we call you for the interview. So that interview, it can take 10 minutes or it could take 2 hours, but we're going to really go through that packet pretty thick. And for some people, it's not very comfortable. So
And
just
we're
be
not
aware.
looking for perfect people. We're just looking for honest people. All right. So again, we have all had issues in our lives in that, but depending on, again, some people say, well, I got a DUI 5 years ago. Well, have you had any alcohol-related offenses since then? Well, no, I haven't. Well, our commission's going to look at that, and they're going to take that into account. If you got a DUI last year, it's not going to look good for you. So again, time, the further you can get away from something, that helps as well.
And social media too, you know, especially I see it more with like the college age that are coming in, because everybody's posting.
That mic down.
Everybody's posting like their Friday night out, right? Oh, look at us. We had all these shots or whatever. Cool. But all that comes back as a character reference on you, and we're looking at it, right? So once again, like Kim said, none of this stuff is an all-inclusive, you're out, but they all add to your character, and they all bring into question, is this really somebody that we want on the fire department? So just think about what you're posting out there. Maybe Google search yourself, see what pops up under your name, go through, you know, maybe some of you guys are old enough, you know what MySpace is, and you had it back in the day, and that's long gone, but it's still out there somewhere. None of that stuff is gone forever.
I don't
Seriously.
think any of these people had MySpace.
There might be somebody.
I don't know if they know what
Julie's
it
going,
is.
No. All right, so I'm old. I get it. That's cool.
MySpace was sold before most of them were born.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. So just keep in mind of what you have out there, it's there. So if you have the ability to clean it up before you ever get to that spot, you're going to be well better suited for it. Okay?
So that will go, your background will go in front of the commission. The commission approves it. Then we're going to move on to the psychological evaluations. So at that time, that's a medical portion. And we've had people that have been in a situation where, you know what, it's not a good time for me to take this job. Maybe it's a family issue, whatever it might be. You are entitled a one-time passover at that phase or the medical exam phase. So what it does is it holds your place on the eligibility list, and then if we would come back to do another hire, then we would come back to the first Passover and say, hey, are you ready to move on? If they say, no, it's still not a good time, then unfortunately they would just be removed from that list. Now, typically, we only do one hire from the list. This list that we're on right now, we're doing 2. We do anticipate a lot of retirements in, 2 to 3 years. But you need to stop and think about that if you truly want to take that Passover, because it may be a chance that we don't come back to you, and then you got to retest all over again when that list expires.
Yeah, just a little bit more on that. If you know, there are personal things that happen. It happens more often than you think. You know, somebody is getting a new job, you just had a kid, there's all sorts of different things in your life that you may go, this is really gonna be complicated for me, it's really gonna make it hard. You may choose to take the Passover. Just keep in mind that Passover is only good for that same list. So this list that you're about to test for is gonna be good for 1 year, and generally we extend it for another year, generally, okay? So we only generally hire 1 class a year at most. So if you are number 4 on the list this time and you say, this is not a good time for me, I'm gonna wait for the next class, and for whatever reason, we don't have a next class off of that list, you don't go to the same spot for the next, you have to test again. You don't get to keep that after that part. So we understand that people are going to take passes from time to time. Just keep in mind, it may work for you and it may not. It may be the one shot you're going to get on this particular test, okay?
With the psychological evaluation, we currently use Campion Barrow and Associates, and they're over in Champaign. You will spend most of the day there. When you go for the first part of the morning, you will do a battery of tests, written test. Then you'll come back in the afternoon, and then you'll meet with the doctor. You are responsible for your own travel over there, but we will pay for your evaluation. That'll go in front of the commission. If they approve that, then we're going to move on to the medical, drug, and agility screening. This is the final phase. Again, this process is a lengthy process, but it's definitely well worth it if you get that offer of employment. With the medical, they're going to do a general system review that takes into account past history and present disease, general body condition, and physique. They're going to give you a color vision test. They use the Ishihara. They're going to drug screen you. And then the agility portion is the physical attributes of the position. So maybe they're going to make you lift 100 pounds, 5 repetitions. They're going to make you, be in a squatting position for a certain amount of time. So it has nothing to do with like what that CPAT test was. So once that's all done, they'll send us a form, shows that you passed everything, you're good to go. We'll take it to the commission. They will approve, and then they will certify you for hire. With the hiring requirements, so like in the beginning, I had said that you could be 20 years of age and test. The thing is you've got to be 21 to be offered a position as a firefighter. So if you are number 1 on the eligibility list and you're 20, we go to hire, you're not technically taking a Passover, we are moving over you, but you're still going to sit there, all right? So if we go back to hire again and you're 21 at the time, then you would move forward in the process. Any questions on that? CPAT card. The reason that we're kind of pushing the CPAT card back is we don't intend to hire a class from the list that you're going to be on until February of 2024. And when you sit there and think, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a long time away. Remember, the testing process is about 6 to 7 months long. Then a background's going to be 6 weeks. Then you've got your psychological, your medical. So you're still doing things, but that's when we would look at starting the first class. So the CPAT card has got to be valid, and it's only good for 1 year of date of issuance. So we don't want you to go out and get it now, because then you just have to turn around and get it again.
And
that?
Just to be clear, the CPAT card, when you complete and pass the CPAT, they will literally hand you a card and say, put your name on there and say you passed it on this date. It is only good for 1 calendar year. So we've pushed that off till later in the year so that hopefully nobody gets caught in the, well, I'm 2 weeks from, my CPAT card is going to be 2 weeks out of date at that point, because we really don't want to have people have to go and pass that again if they don't have to. But yeah, that's one of the major components as far as that goes.
All right, so we're ready for some questions that anybody might have. Don't be shy.
Go ahead and just step up to the microphone up here, because we are taping this so that people who aren't here, they can hear this later. So line up and we'll do our best to get you some good answers.
Sorry for my voice.
That's all right.
I'm in the guard, so. Been yelling this last weekend. If you have a TS-SCI that's recent with a poly scope, can I turn that paperwork in for my background?
That would be you're probably going to have to help me out with what all those letters mean, but
Yes, top secret.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
SCI.
Yep.
Polygraph would be just a lifestyle polygraph.
Yeah. I would say that I would ask
You know, if
Todd
there's
that.
any special training or special certifications or whatever that you've gotten, there's a place on the background list that allows you to put that stuff in there,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Yeah.
but we are going to do our own background on you too. Obviously, if you've got that,
pass it.
probably not going to be any issues, but we still got to do one though.
Don't be shy. This is the time to get your questions answered. Come on up.
I just have a short question is so can you bring some water or something with you or something to snack on during the test?
Which test? The written test?
The written test.
I could say you could bring a drink that has a lid to it.
Yeah.
And I'll check on that. I'd have to ask the Crown Plaza on that if they
Okay.
would want to allow it, because the only concern I would have is if maybe you had something that was greasy and it gets on that Scantron sheet and it doesn't pick it up.
Yeah.
But I would definitely allow you to bring in a drink as long as it has a cap on it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions about how much we make or how often we work or none of that stuff. You just want to get on. It doesn't matter. You'll work every day, 24 hours a day. Sometimes you
Good
do.
evening. I'm Andrew Martin. I have two questions. First, how many applications are you looking to field for this round of hiring? And how many, just to confirm, how many total positions are you looking to fill?
So right now, we're about 20 short. We anticipate over the next 4 years up to about 60 retirements, possibly more. We're kind of playing catch up right now, as a couple of people to my left can tell you there's a lot of overtime right now. So we're trying to get as many people on board as we can. We generally try to hire somewhere between 12 and 20 in a class. Right now we're behind, so we've tried to get some bigger classes, but sometimes it comes down to, backgrounds and stuff like that. We think that we have, 20 people, but background issues cause our classes to get smaller. I would say that we're probably going to take between 30 and 40 off of this next list would be my goal. And so the classes that we're talking about would be hired in February of 2024 and February of 2025, the way that I have everything laid out.
Excellent. And just to confirm, sir, how many applications are you expecting to receive this round?
Right now, we're just shy of 200, but Kim said that generally speaking, we get a lot the last few weeks. So last time, I think we had 500 applicants.
500, but with COVID, we ended up with an eligibility list that had less than 100 people on it.
Right.
That was a different situation just because we had so many limitations in that. But I do expect to probably have 400 applications, but it doesn't mean 400 people are going to show. Because sometimes people apply for things not realizing that there's a lot of things that they have to go through. They're just looking to be hired immediately, and with this, it's something that's going to take a year to do.
Yeah, don't go put in your 2 weeks. Man, I nailed that test. I'm gonna put in my 2 weeks. You're gonna be collecting unemployment for a while. It's gonna take us. A year or better. Now you'll know. We may have some answers for the next class. By November-ish of next year. That hey, we're going to want you to start in February, but that's still 10 months. It takes a long time for us to turn that around.
I have two more questions.
Sure.
That's all right. My first question is, somebody already brought up certifications and other documents that might be beneficial. Are there any specific certifications that you could recommend any of us to take between now and the hiring phase that might better our chances at employment?
I would tell you always that if you have any kind of I stated earlier, we have over 60% of our calls are medical. If you can get a first responder class in, or even an EMTB class or something like that in, it doesn't hurt your chances, especially when you walk into that interview and you can say, well, in anticipation of getting this job, I wanted to get a head start on it and I wanted to go ahead and get my EMTB. Those are all good things. There isn't like a silver bullet though. There's not like, hey, I have my bachelor's in fire science, and so I get 10 extra points. You don't get 10 extra points, but when you walk in and say, I have a bachelor's or an associate's in fire science or something like that, then obviously in that interview process, I would make sure everybody knows that so that they can go, oh, well, this guy is serious about this job. But there's other than the three things that Kim talked about that you get extra points for, there's nothing else that you necessarily get credit. Now, if we have anybody out there that, I know that we have some medical people, maybe some paramedics, RNs, EMTBs, when you get to the academy, then you don't have to obviously retake those certification tests, which makes it easier on you. So if you're already a paramedic, we're going to teach you both EMTB and advanced EMT, and you won't have to take those certification tests if you're already certified.
Right. You'll still have to take the weekly tests. So you'll still have to read the material, make sure you pass the weekly tests, or daily tests, but not the state exams. So say you're advanced EMT or B, you won't have to, at the end of the class, take that state test or national test again.
So basically, he's saying you still have to participate along with the class, even if you have the certification. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is with this, it is an entry-level position. You do not have to have any of that. That would just behoove of you if you wanted to do that, but know that you will get all the training that you need if you're hired on as a firefighter.
Understood. All right, well, thank you very much. That actually also answered my last question. So thank you for your time.
Thanks.
So within the academy, and it's going to be pushing 7 months now. We just decided that we were going to add a little bit of time to it after this last academy got over with. It's pretty grueling. We're going to push you through EMTB and EMT advanced EMT at a faster pace than what you're going to get if you take it at a community college or if you take it at a course from some paramedics from an ambulance company or something like that. So it is going to be grueling. So if you have the ability, you do well on the written, and you're anticipating, okay, I'm going to do well. I really want to do well on the oral portion. If you take some classes as far as that goes, it'll make your life a lot easier because, there's sometimes Mike is one of our instructors for the academy. They read 100 pages a night or more a lot in the medical portion.
Oh, easily. Sometimes it's 3 to 4 chapters. The chapters are smaller, but heavier chapters, say, respiratory or cardiac, it'll be multiple days for that one chapter since it's such a heavy subject and an important one. But later on, like say the advanced, you'll have 4 chapters that you'll have to read for that day. So you'll have to read them that night.
More questions?
Come on up.
You've said classes a couple times. Does each class start with whoever takes the test on the 5th and 7th? Is that considered one class?
So what he's talking about is the eligibility list when he goes to hire. So say he needs to hire 15 people. So the 15 people that he hires off that list is in a class. And so they do all their training together for that 7 months.
So the way that it'll work is that everybody in this room is going to take the upcoming test, and let's say that we're going to be able to take on 18 people for the academy after that. That academy will start in February of 24. You would essentially be the class of 2024. And those 18 people would be in that class. It's just like a high school class or,
Okay.
you know,
So
anything else.
The class is whoever like makes it.
Correct.
Go
Now,
to the
now if, let's say that you end up being number 36 on the list and we hire a second class, and that would probably be in February of 2025. So then you join the class of 2025. So it just depends on when your academy starts and ends as far as which class you're in, as far as, you know, and it's not really anything official other than the people that will be in your class. Those are going to be the people that you bond with at the beginning, that you're going to go through the entire course of your career with. So that from that standpoint, that's kind of important. But as far as just being in a class, that's just what we call the group of people.
Whoever starts at the.
So with January, the 2 different written exam dates are just simply to accommodate people. A Saturday might be easier for them, or an evening time. So that right now, you're just competing with everybody trying to get the highest rank on that list is what your goal is right now.
Is this the only time to take the test in the year is January?
Yes, so,
okay.
yeah, so for this eligibility list, it's just those 2 dates in January to take that written, and then we'll have the oral assessment a few months later after that.
Either
Everything starts with the written test.
Yep, everything starts with the written.
starts on the 5th or the 7th. We tried to put some flexibility in there for, we know people have places to be in, jobs and whatnot. So we tried to pick a couple of days that would work for people. And then they'll do the written tests. Then generally in April-ish or May, generally April, we're going to probably try and have the oral assessments in April. And then all the background checks and so forth thereafter. And then that class will start. This coming one, it's usually, we're going to try and make it for mid-February as a start date.
What kind of content's on the test? I don't know. How much?
That study guide's gonna help you.
Okay.
So if you got that study guide tonight, look through that. That's gonna give you information and give you ideas of what to expect. But again, with the test, you're gonna have probably 70% of it be behavioral questions and 30% are your thought process, your cognitive questions.
So it's not like knowing all about fires and things like that.
No, there will be no fire content on it. I'm not going to ask you what the
Yeah.
flow rate is of a 200-foot section of 1 3/4 inch.
They
Mike,
might
you
say
know
you
what
are
that
a,
is?
What is it,
assume
Chief?
that you're a newly hired firefighter, and they maybe put your mindset into, this scenario, but you don't have to have any prior experience to do well on that test.
Okay. And then how long is the fire academy, and what kind of time commitment?
It's
when you're involved?
about 7 months. Now, it's not like, some fire departments send their folks over to IFSI in Champaign, and they actually stay there. Ours is here in town. You're able to go home at night. During that time when you're going home at night, though, you're going to be doing a lot of studying. And it generally starts when we do PT in the morning. What time do we start PT?
About 6 or 5:30 or 6, depending on, who's instructing that day, what's going on. Class will start promptly at 8, go to like 4 or 5. You'll get your like hour lunch break, but you're going the whole day. You'll get your breaks and all that, but all day you're going. So you're starting at 5:30, you're not getting home till 6, and then you got to study. Then you got to read for the next day and just do it all over again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
To piggyback what Mike was talking about with the academy and the chief as well. So that 7 months, it's 7 long months of classroom, 6-8 hours a day, PT in the morning before that, and then study every night. If you're a single person, you don't have kids, you don't have a spouse to keep happy, not a big deal. If you have a spouse or kids, it can be life-changing. So if this is something you're serious about, you might want to start prepping your spouse, or if you're a single parent like I was, you might want to start prepping your family that's going to be your support network, right? Because you're going to need them. And they're going to have to be really patient, understanding that this is 7 months of my life to start a fabulous career, but that 7 months you have to get through first. So just be forewarned that it's difficult, okay?
More questions?
So I have metal rods in my back. I was wondering, is that going to be an automatic disqualification whenever the health process
Fast question is, I don't know, but I would say that medically, it would be something that would come out. I'm sure that that's something that they would look at. I wouldn't discourage you from taking the test.
Okay.
Do the written, and I tell you what, tomorrow, go to the city's website, click on Ask the Chief, send me that question again, and I'll have your email. We'll do some checking into some things. I don't know off the top of my head. There's people who have had, different types of repairs that they've had to have done and have gotten on. So, but I haven't been asked that question. Have you, Kim?
No, but we can reach out to the provider and ask them. So definitely send him your information and we'll get back with you.
All right, thank you.
To help answer that question, from an injury I had in high school, I can't feel half of my hand, and it doesn't function correctly. So, and I'm here. You know what I mean? So don't let that discourage you. Going back to the medical part, what I remember about it is there was a shuttle run, and probably the hardest part was they had a portion where you had to bend over for like 2 minutes or something like that, just bend at the waist. And for me, I was pretty healthy, and I felt like that was the hardest thing. So maybe something you start working on, bend over at the waist, and just hold it there is what I knew the biggest part of that was. That medical part at the end, it's generally pretty easy. It's not, if you pass the CPAT, you will smoke that. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more?
Oh, come on.
Now, for people that didn't get the packets that we ran out, there's some new copies over there. So I want you to definitely take a set when you leave. The other thing is some people came in after we started, which is fine, but we would like to get your information. So if you'll just stop at the table once we dismiss, then I'll get that information written down. So this is the last call. Any more questions? So like the chief said, you've got his contact the chief, but you also have human resources email in the packet as well. So if you leave and you come up with some questions, feel free just to email us, or you can call my office tomorrow. The phone number's in there as well, and we'll get you taken care of.
On a closing note, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. This will actually will give you an advantage because not everybody who is going to take that test is here tonight, and there's stuff that we told you that they're not going to be prepared for. So just be diligent, like we said before, go online, look up stuff, prepare. We're looking forward to getting a bunch of I wanted this to be really competitive. I really want to see some good scores out of some people, and the fact that there's a lot of you here tonight shows that that's probably going to happen. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm going to stick around for a little bit, so if any of you want to come up and introduce yourself and have any other questions for us that you didn't want to go and stand in front of everybody and ask, we can do that. But other than that, do not forget to sign up for the test and pick a date. And other than that, we'll see you on the 5th and the 7th. Thank you.